Hello kids, welcome back to my channel. My epilepsy is acting up. Bitch, I've died twice. You fucking child. Don't take your phone and go like this with the flashlight.
In this night, a starry sky, my baby told me with a sigh, saying,
It's been a minute, yet again. So, I thought that I would finally do something that I've been thinking about doing for the past 4-ish years. Initially, I wanted to write this out in like a novel format or story format, but every time that I started doing it, I would just end up on a complete different tangent about a different part of my life that was going this way, and then that and this that was completely just not related to the epilepsy itself. So for the past couple of weeks, I've been writing things down, and there's lots. So I'm gonna try and split this into categories so that it's a little bit easier to like stick with and understand the context of everything in the storyline. I hope you guys understand this. I've had this discussion with doctors, friends, family, therapists, other therapists. It's just, it is what it is. So I've kind of come to accept that in the last couple of years. I'm still working on it, obviously, as things change and life sucks at times, but I'm at a point now where I can actually talk to others about this openly and not have the resentment in the story as hard as I used to, and more just talking about it genuinely and like, this is what happened. Can't help it, rather than this is what happened because of this, and this happened when I was a kid, and now I have this. Sure, there are some facts in the mix of the emotional parts of how I've dealt with this, but now that I'm A, older, and B, somewhat more stabilized, and I've learned a lot more in the last couple of years about what is actually going on in my brain. That was a long-winded intro. I hope that you guys are not falling asleep already, but let's jump into this video. Alright, so the first thing that I want to cover is the beginning of basically everything and kind of my life. So when I was 1.5 years old, I contracted but was not confirmed with any actual diagnoses, bacterial meningitis. And I had a high fever, I had febrile seizures, and that was the first time that I had seizures in my life. Now, I was, at the time, from what I was told by family, obviously I don't remember this, I was with my grandmother, and I fell, seized, lips went blue, everything. She called 911, and she's told me this story multiple times because it terrified her. And she took me out to the ambulance, and they rushed me to a central hospital, so not our major hospitals in Alberta, but a centralized one, and then they immediately had me in intensive care, and like the story got a little bit fuzzy in here, but basically at some point I was then flown via helicopter to the highest care for children that we offer in this province. I'm not gonna put names and stuff in this because it just doesn't need to be known, I don't think, but I stayed there and I was in intensive care in the NICU, or ICU, whatever, for 2 months. And then they released me, presuming that I was okay, because they could not definitively tell if I did have bacterial meningitis, but it was the most reasonable explanation that they could give my parents and my family. So I don't know what happened after that as for directions for aftercare, or to be under observation, or to check back in with a pediatrician. I don't know. I was a baby. Literally, how was I supposed to know? I don't know. I wasn't supposed to know, and I'm still working on that. Because at the end of the day, this has really thrown me around a lot. So, anyways, that was the first experience that I had with seizures. And then after that, it was never really brought up again. I didn't, from what everybody told me, have any symptoms of seizures afterwards. But now, looking back, we can see kind of the little flags that were kind of here and there, but they were really hard to notice because of the type of epilepsy that I have. I have focal epilepsy, so I have partial seizures, and I have partial aware seizures and some that are just partially aware. So you can look this up. They're a newer type of seizures, and epilepsy in general is just not really a lot known about it yet because it's a newer brain condition that is being studied more now, but we're also discovering now in the last 10-15 years why there's so many people that have epilepsy from different illnesses, different traumas, different medications, and we ended up figuring that mine was due to trauma. So somewhere along the lines of when I was released from the hospital at 20 months and like between about then and when I turned 2.5, I at some point was suffocated either by rolling over in my crib or my bed, just had a seizure and nobody noticed, could happen in the night. There isn't an explanation, and I've stopped really trying to find one because I'm not going to. I was without oxygen for roughly 1 hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours. And that is what has caused a large scar in the left side of my brain. So the scarring in my brain, they call temporal sclerosis, and that is what causes the complex partial seizures in me and the partial awareness and different things, is because of the area that it is damaged in. It's in the memory area of the brain, really close to the hippocampus and other parts of the brain that, well, they're really, any part of your brain is important, but that part is especially important for emotional regulation and memories. As I kind of started to understand that something was wrong during these episodes, the first thing that came to me was, this feels like deja vu, or like memory jogging almost. And that was what led me to think I had anxiety. And that was the path that I kind of just went on and thought that I was just really hyper, like ADHD, and I just had a lot of anxiousness and couldn't sit still all the time. That's what we thought for my whole childhood. Occasionally I would sleep with my eyes open. That one I don't really understand, but that's what I was told by family members. That's how my childhood was. And I don't remember having my first episode until I was 6 years old. And this I remember like perfectly vivid, 3D, everything. I was on my parents' bed in their bedroom, and I was in there by myself. I was just playing on their bed, and I looked towards their closet, which was like their bed was here and their closet was over here, and I looked straight into the closet. And whatever reason, it sparked an episode. At the time, didn't have a clue what that was, but it was a seizure. The only thing that I can remember is a locker, like a school locker, and a stinky sock from Johnny Test. Make that make sense. So obviously when I told my parents this, they're like, you're 6, you're dreaming. Not sure, but I was scared of it. That was the thing. So they thought there was maybe a nightmare. I don't know. It didn't make sense. But that was the first episode that I ever had. I continued to have them. I remember a lot of them on the bus, going to school in the morning because I lived really far out of town, so it's the first one on the bus in the morning, last one off. Multiple times like throughout school, especially in math class when I hated math. So obviously I always had them in math. And just all the time. I used to have up to 15 per day. My average was 7 per day. So from 6 until about 13, I just thought this is anxiety, whatever. But then came puberty.
Is that Captain Crunch?
I follow that guy to the bottom of the ocean.
What?
And with puberty came hormones. It came with depression. It came with moving into higher levels in school. So kids are assholes. Just stressors from school, friends, lots of stuff. And I was also in a lot of sports. I was figure skating 2 times a week, and I was dancing 2 to 3 times a week as well for a couple hours a day, on top of 6+ hours of school, on top of 1.5 hours, 2 hours on the bus in the morning. So I had a long day for several years. Like, that was my routine. Just go, 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 go. Which was great for me because I was very hyper. So it worked. So we thought. And then I started to have horrible, horrible period problems, like cramps, bleeding crazy, like for 10 to 15 days, and then nothing. Like, it just didn't make sense. And so I tried multiple different types of birth control, because that was the first thing that the doctor assumed, throw you on birth control. But I tried 3 different types of the pills, the NuvaRing implant, I tried the Depo shot. Finally, they gave me an IUD. I'm only 20 and I'm on my 2nd one because I have issues within my reproductive organs. And also at the time, might I mention, I was 13 years old and I had started dating a boy that was 15. And I became sexually active at 13. There was a lot to do with that was aggressive and violent at times, so that could have been damaging as well, but it was also stressful. And that played into the hormones and everything, because I ended up doing a lot of things that most people don't do until they're in their 20s. At 13 and 14, drinking, smoking, fucking. Not proud to say that, and I don't know if we can even say that on YouTube. This might get demonetized, I don't really care. This is my story. As I was going through that, 13 to 14 years roughly, I also started to have a lot more night terrors, like actual night terrors, and then sleep paralysis came along with that. And that really freaked me out. So that was the point where I was like, okay, I actually need to do something about this anxiety. It's not just that I have it and I'm aware of it, I need to go talk to someone. I went to my family and they didn't really get what I was needing to go for. So their solution was simply to send them to a family counselor that they had used to assist them with a relationship romantically. So that was obviously not the right person that I needed to go to, and that was realized within a session because I couldn't speak alone. I had to bring a parent in to basically like censor what I was talking about, so I couldn't even actually freely speak. At that point, 14, I was starting to plot how I was going to get out of my parents' house because I was far out of town. I didn't like living there. We were having rough relationships, and there was a lot of things going on in my personal life between me and this older boyfriend, friend circles, and amongst all of this, there was a lot of drinking on weekends, which was definitely the way that I dealt with shit, was just partying on the weekend. I didn't get into drugs, somehow. Weed I smoked a little bit, but I never ever touched any other drugs because I was so scared of dying because I had a lot of addicted family members and stuff, so I just didn't. I started the plot of how I was going to get out of my parents' house. Now, having such a busy schedule actually came to my benefit. I could kind of ask to stay in the town where my school and my sports were, where my friends were, and where my boyfriend was, because my grandmother lived there. So we didn't have a great, we had a relationship, we just didn't know each other super well. But I asked her if I could stay with her more and more often during the week. And so it became like a once or twice a week thing, and then it became twice a week thing, and then my mom didn't really appreciate that though, so she started pushing back against that. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore, and at that point, I'd gone to my school counselor to talk about these things, and she was completely confused with the symptoms that I was telling her, but then also telling her, I know it's just anxiety, because she was like, this doesn't align. A lot of it because I would have amnesia afterwards, and things just wouldn't make sense in the postictal phase of an epileptic seizure. So I'll use some terms and I'll give you a little blurb of what it is. The postictal phase, you're just kind of out of it. So I would be out of it quite a bit. The counselor just suggested that I should maybe talk to my doctor about this and try out some medication. At this point, I went to my doctor. We talked about this, and he referred me to another counselor or neuro something. And I actually don't really remember what the actual accident was, but I thought I was having a panic attack, and I went to the hospital by myself, I'm pretty sure, and they did an EEG, and they were like, wow, dude, you have so much electrical activity in the brain that's just not really normal. So then, from the ER there, I was referred to a neurologist. Shortly after, I was diagnosed with partial complex seizures and temporal epilepsy. From that point, I was on multiple trial drugs. Because I was on medication now, even though I naturally only have partial seizures, due to my epilepsy is only partial, it's not grand mal. But if I wouldn't take the medication, or if it didn't come in the right half-life time and the right time of the day, typically at night, I would have grand mals. And there was a really bad one that I had when I was living at my grandma's that my boyfriend was in bed with me, but he didn't do anything. Just kind of let me do it and made, like, you can't stop someone from seizing, but I had a really, really bad grand mal seizure, and I chewed my tongue right to pieces, and it was scarred. There's still a scar there, but it was ripped right in half, and like everything was bad. My head was bad. I couldn't do anything. And at this point too, I was like, all right, no, I need to move out.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
So in discussion with my school counselor, she put me in contact with a social worker. And the social worker, after a couple of months of working with her really hard, working with a counselor and working with a therapist, and also keeping all of this silent because I could not let my family know that I was trying to leave, I was granted what is called medical emancipation by the government of Canada, or government of Alberta, whatever. And that is the Canadian form of emancipation. I became my own guardian at 16. It took pretty well the entire year of me being 15 and living at my grandma's house to get there. But as soon as I got that emancipation, I switched my banks, I switched my phone, everything. I got it out of my family's grip because they just didn't really believe me. They didn't understand my medical thing. I did end up moving in with my grandma full time for the second semester of grade 10 and the entirety of grade 11. So I stayed in that school that I was in for that period of time. Grade 10 I finished in normal classroom school, and grade 11 is when trial medicines and everything were really just kicking my ass, and I had to do things differently. But I also was had it in my head, I was like, I need to make sure that my ass is covered in case something falls next year in grade 12, aka I needed to make sure that I had enough credits to graduate early. So that's what I did, as much as my brain was broken. And the other thing that came when I got diagnosed, obviously you lose your license for the first few months until you're stabilized and whatever. And the first neurologist or doctor, whoever it was, that told me you're going to lose your license for this period of time, told me it was going to be 18 months. And at the time I had a nice jacked up truck, I was working, I had money, I was doing well, so I thought. I had a big circle of friends, hence the partying every weekend, and as soon as I lost my license, obviously that truck was no longer there to drive everybody around at lunch. It was not there to put everybody in for the weekend, different things like that, and I immediately lost. I want to say 85 to 90% of my friend circle, but it was really hard. I fell into depression pretty hard, and that was when I found my closest, deepest friend, which we had grown up together. She was always in the same school with me. She lived in town, and we just never were really close friends until grade 11. Over the summer, once I got my medical emancipation, I found myself at a job at a lake, stacked as much cash as I could. I was working as much as possible, every shift that I could get. I was full-time, plus 2 or 3 other jobs on the weekends and cash jobs under the table. I was working myself to the bone. We got through it, and then, at the end of the summer, I had enough money that I could go and find my own place if it was cheap enough. So went on Facebook Marketplace and started looking up as many places to live in the town that she had just moved schools to that I could. So I found myself a tiny, tiny shoebox apartment. It was $600 a month. I was 17. I signed that contract month to month, and I promised my landlord my life, basically, because she was taking a chance. I was a child, literally. Well, not technically, because I was my own guardian, but I was still 17. Most landlords aren't going to trust a 17-year-old girl, but she did. Thank God she did. I got it, and I remember the day at work, I was sitting at my desk that I was doing cashier stuff at, and I got the call on my phone. There's horrible cell service down there because we're in a lake, and they called me and they're like, "You got the apartment," and I punched the fucking desk. I was quietly on the other end. Fuck yeah. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I'll be moved as soon as possible. When can we sign paperwork? When can I get my keys? The next day, I got my keys, signed that paperwork, sent her the damage, started packing my shit, and within 3 days, I was in that apartment. Because school started in 4 days. So I started school and new school for grade 12, and I was was shocked. I didn't know what the fuck to think, but I was like, all right, I'm my own person now. Like, you're gonna have to deal with this. So thankfully, while I was in grade 11, I did work ahead enough to have a pretty lenient schedule for grade 12 when it came to requiring credits, so classes in the day. And at least I had my best friend there. I made friends pretty quickly. And the other thing that had just happened, the day that I started school, I broke up with my boyfriend, almost 3 years of relationship with the same guy that took my virginity at 13. So we broke up finally, so I was like really free willy when I came to the school. New apartment to myself, I'm my own guardian, no boyfriend for the first time in fucking 4 years basically. And I was like, wow. And then I got my school schedule. I had 2, maybe 3 classes in the day for the entire year, both semesters. The second semester, I only had 2 classes per day, if that. So I was like, really had an open schedule. So I was like, all right, let's find a job in town. I did, funny enough. Went to work with my best friend at a care home. And then grade 12 happened. So at that point I wasn't drinking either because the medication that I was on just didn't work with alcohol. So I started smoking a lot more weed with my friends. And my teachers actually, they knew, but because I was an honors student and I was honest with them and they knew my background and my situation, like day one I would come in early and tell them everything basically because I didn't want it to bite me in the ass later. So I would give them my life story as soon as I came into class. Hi, my name is Raina. So-and-so, it's nice to meet you. Oh, where did you come from? You're new? And I'm like, I just got legally emancipated. I'm on my own right now. I just moved by myself here to this town. I got myself an apartment, and I'm trying to get myself through school. And that's basically the conversation I had with all 6 teachers that I had. Things were going well. I found really good friends, and then I found a boyfriend, which was a fucking mistake. That was a completely stupid relationship. New Year's, actually, of my grade 12 year. I was in BC. My aunt had called me from BC and asked me, like, how are you doing? Like, 'cause she had heard about everything, obviously, and they stay away from this side of the family for a reason. So she was checking in on me, and she said basically, like, well, you've had a lot of shit in the last little while, like, why don't I bring you down to BC and like to see me and your cousins and your other aunt and stuff, and you can hang out with us for New Year's. Your grandma's coming down too. So I was like, okay, sounds good. So I went, and second day, it was the 2nd or the 1st of January of 2023, and a friend of my boyfriend's at the time, who I had also come to be pretty close friends with because another friend of mine was kind of seeing him, so kind of not. But we would always hang out at his place. So we became good friends, and his mom and I became really good friends. And I still want to be her when I'm grown up, actually. But anyway, he Snapchatted me. And he's like, hey, I need to tell you something. And I'm in a really bad position right now to be the one telling you this, but I feel like I need to. And immediately I knew it was something to do with my partner. Found out he was doing a lot of cocaine. And yeah, a video of him cheating on me. Which was also the same thing that happened to me with the other boyfriend, was I was sent photographs. So 2 for 2 on boyfriends cheating on me and me being told via 4K footage.
Nice.
Broke my fucking heart, of course. So then I was like, I am not gonna deal with this bullshit anymore. Life just kicks me when I'm down over and over and over again. I'm done. Quit dating entirely for the next year and a half. I finished grade 12. I worked my ass off, and then end of May, June, grad comes along. And things have been going well. My medication had been working well. Didn't really have any auras or anything, which are like the preemptive warning thing that your body sends you if you're gonna have a seizure. And I didn't have any that I remembered anyways. So graduation though, that was a big stressor. Diplomas, grad rehearsal, I had things to do, I had work to do, I had money I needed to make, as well as doing things with friends and trying to recommunicate with my family and stuff so that my grad would go okay, because there was family members coming from different parts of the country, and some didn't get along and this and that. So I was also always worried about what other people were kind of emotionally needing around me, so I was never focused on my own emotional shit, which definitely didn't help throughout any of this. The grad rehearsal, and we had to do like a dance thing. It was like a ballroom dance kind of a thing as a beginning part of our grad ceremony. It was weird. So we were doing partner dances, and we were lined up in the hallway to go begin the dancing in the gym. And it was the next day was the actual grad, and for whatever reason, standing in line there, I looked up at the cinder block wall, and I got smacked with a hard aura, and I hit the wall. Don't know what happened after that. My friend, of course, was right there screaming, trying to figure out what the hell was going on, why the teachers were why I wasn't there, why the teachers wouldn't tell her why I wasn't there, and I was just there, and this and that. And then apparently they had taken me to the office in the school, and this was after hours, might I add. Like, our dress rehearsals were at like 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. So my school was also connected to the college in that town as well. So that was a whole other thing. There's just always people in there, but different sections of the building would be locked off at different hours. So I got locked in the office. I come back to consciousness at about 8:45, almost 9. And where I came back to consciousness was in my truck by myself, parked, keys next to me, phone next to me, confused as shit. I had a little bit of memory of walking out of the school and getting in my truck, but that's the only part that really came back first. And so at first I called, where are you? What the fuck just happened? Why can't I remember? She's bawling on the other end of the phone, fucking freaking out. Where the hell did they take you? What, they wouldn't let me do anything. We tried to call and and yeah, so that was my first episode after multiple years of not having any, but I got through grad. It went alright. I went up north to work for the summer. Things were going okay. And then I came back and I had to figure out something to do for about a month, and I was going to EMR school. I decided to work again, obviously to make up some money so that I could go to live in. So I had a student education savings plan already in place, and then I also had savings of my own, and the government was helping me out with the student emancipation. That was kind of how I was surviving. And I had some friends up there, but I was able to drive again, and I was just like, fuck the world, I'm me, I'm doing me. And then I moved, and this was when I found out the world is your oyster. I say the world's your oyster, and that I found that out because I started going clubbing and going to bars and stuff like that. And there was an incident in one of the clubs where I got an aura really bad, which is kind of odd because I don't get the light trigger, like flashing lights or a lot of loud sounds, but I was feeling scared of this man. He'd come on to me, whatever you want to call it, and then I had this episode, and so I got rid of that quickly, and then I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just not going to go out at all. And then I still pretty much just didn't go out, didn't really drink. Here and there I would have a cooler or seltzer, but otherwise I didn't. And the next couple months went well. I finished my practicals, I got my practice license, I did all of the certs to get actually certified within the province to practice and everything. March of 2024, and I was actually down in my boyfriend's hometown because I was there to take an H2S course because I had my license and I was like, okay, I'm applying to different ambulance facilities and different places and stuff, but because I'm an EMR in Alberta, AHS doesn't really work with EMRs a lot, so you're better off to look in private companies or industrial companies. And I, my whole life, had dealt with horrible people, so I was like, oh, I'll work the rigs, whatever. So that's what I was taking the H2S course for, I was hoping to get into an industrial medical position. So before going to my class, I was like, oh, let's grab a coffee. This exact one right here. Took a right, took a left to head towards the drive-thru. Smash! Car accident. I got T-boned by a woman speeding with a very small child in the front seat on her phone. And that should have totaled that car, but it didn't. It bent the frame. I had a good concussion and everything, and that delayed me from a lot of things. I was just mad at the world. I didn't have a vehicle for a little bit, and it was not my fault at all. So I was like, I didn't make it to my course, and then obviously that delayed me from getting that job. I continued to apply and apply and apply, and I was like, yeah, finally, someone got back to me. And that was the company that I have been working with. And I was so happy, dude. Like, I was so happy. So I got that job, and I was doing like better. I was obviously still in recovery from concussions and the whiplash, but I was doing better, and I absolutely loved my job. I was in heaven, starstruck. There was a period of time where then I had to move to the town where I was working, and it was a rougher town. So I was more stressed in my environment because there was crackheads everywhere. I lived downtown, and I lived in a really poopy apartment complex. There was meth addicts all over the place. They would shoot up in the hallways, and I would see them. I handed out more Narcan in my hallways, at the stairwells, and the parking lot of my apartment building than I did at work on a 12-hour shift. And that was in May of 2024. And I was working for a good 6, almost 7 months. My brother had a kid, that was great. I was closer to my family in that town. My grandmother and I were best friends, and now we lived in the same place. We were even more best friends. It was a Wednesday, I remember that, in November. And I didn't feel great in the morning, so I called out of work because I just felt like, you should just call out, take the day to yourself. It's been a hard week. And I called a family member that does aesthetics, and she was doing my eyelashes at the time, like extensions. And I asked her, and it's like, hey, I need a fill. Can I come over today? She's like, yeah, no worries. So a couple hours later, it's November in Alberta. It's snowing and gross out. I am coming out of my apartment, and 2 or 3 sets of traffic lights up. And it was green, so I went. Boom! Right in front of me, I, at this point, T-boned this woman who was speeding through a red light, coming this way. And that one hit me bad. That one was hard. That was the worst of the car accidents. And my car was totaled, my whole front end was destroyed, the doors wouldn't open, the airbags went off, the windshield was shattered. I smacked my head off of the window, and the airbag obviously hit me in the face. But at that point, I was so high on my life of EMR life and emergency services life, I don't know, my brain immediately went, I smell smoke, let's get out of the vehicle. So I fell out of my vehicle onto the icy concrete, and like ears ringing, everything, and like I was like, oh fuck, I could turn the car off. I had enough sense to take the key out, turn the car off, like, cause I was like drifting into the sidewalk. So turn the car off, threw the keys down, and I'm crawling along the ground. There's pedestrians watching me, and I heard somebody say, there's 3. And it just shot in my brain. So there's 3 people in that car. If there's 3, there's 1 in the back, and that means it could be a kid. Like, immediately went into EMS mode. I got up, fucking adrenaline running, flew over out of the car, sobbing, but her car was brand new, so it automatically called 911 when it sensed a crash. And they're bawling, talking to 911 what just happened, you just got a car accident, da-da-da-da. And she's sitting there, and I ripped the door open. I'm like, are you okay? What's going on? And we're talking, and then she's like, I hit her. And I'm like, no, you hit me, honey. It's okay. And she fucking loses her shit. She's like, I hit you, and it was not good, and da-da-da. And then the pedestrians started to come out to me, and they're like, you need to, like, sit down. Like, you just got, a major car accident. And at that point, I was like, ooh. And then my legs went to jello. The adrenaline wore off. Fire showed up, picked us up. Ambulance took us to the hospital. We got dealt with and everything. And they diagnosed me with a severe concussion and severe, like, grade 3 or 4 whiplash and everything. Because I didn't even have a full year of recovery between the first one and this one. So this one was also adding to my previous accident. So at that point, I was put on disability because I was not allowed to work. And that is kind of when depression started creeping back in, and I thought I was doing good. I really did. I thought I was okay. I thought things were going good. And then I kind of just started to have auras out of nowhere again after years of not having any. And I was confused, talked to the doctors. There was no reason other than you've had 2 traumatic brain injuries in less than a year. And that was the only reasoning that they could really tell me. They couldn't give me any other, like, medical management tools because I already had the IUD, which was managing my hormones and cycles and everything the best that I could to keep that under control, because if you didn't know, in women with epilepsy, your hormone cycles can interfere with that and trigger you. So that had been under control for quite a while now, and I was at a point where there was minimal stress in my mind at the time because I was happy with my job. I was making enough money to survive. I had friends and family around. In reality, that was not enough, looking back at all. No, I lived in a terrible place that was filled with meth fumes most of the time too, which I think contributed to some feeling bad. Scared to go outside most of the time, and I definitely was not going outside in dark. No, just a lot of things that I didn't realize at the time were stressing me out. On top of the fact that I was working EMS, continued to just kind of hang out at home because I was on disability. On disability, and then I decided I couldn't stay where I was anymore. Too bad I couldn't afford to live there on the poor disability checks that I was getting. So I was like, all right, I need to get out of here. And my boyfriend current boyfriend, he was talking to me about possibly moving as well for work. So sure enough, that's what we ended up doing for January. After Christmas and New Year's crap, we immediately moved multiple hours away from, we were both multiple hours away from each other in the beginning, but then we moved multiple hours away from our hometowns and families as well, to where we are now. And that was a huge stress reliever, for sure. I love the place that I live in now 10 times more than anywhere I've lived in the past 5 years. And my partner's great. Things that I have here are great, and it's much better. But, of course, there's a but. It was all going great. And then my niece, my brother's child, she was just turning 1 in April. So, April of 2025, I was doing good. I was having auras here and there, so the doctor put me on a booster medication. And that wasn't working. So he was like, okay, we're going to try the sister drug to the drug that you've been on for multiple years that's worked really well. So that was what I was put on during this week. So I had to drive there an hour away from here and an hour back. So I go to the party, and I'm still having auras on this medication, unfortunately. So I'm like, Like, I didn't really want to go, but I was like, it's her first birthday, let's just go and do this and then come right back home. So the birthday party went all right. I had, I think, 1 aura there, but it was minor for what I usually get. Cooled myself down for a second, went back out. It's good. And then at the end of the day, hug everybody, guys, cool. Driving home, I am 15 minutes from home, and I felt an aura come on. And for whatever reason, it sent the we need to do something stop thought through my body. So immediately I hit the brakes, and I was trying to pull over, and then I blacked out. When I clued back in, I was facing the other way from when I started. My windshield was shattered, and the front end of my truck was cut up and scraped. There was scratches along the side, and I didn't know where I was. So I called my grandmother because she was closest. I was like, I don't know what just happened. And I was like, I'm going to the hospital, post-ictal. I'm still not fully in control of myself. So I go to the hospital, and I get checked out there. Sure enough, yeah, I had a seizure, and now I can't drive again. So that was April, and we've been on different medications. He took me off of that one, thank God, and put me back on the initial drug that I was on with a different booster. And that one's been doing better, but I have still been having auras. It's not done yet. It's not solved. It's being minorly managed at the moment, but that's to the point where we are now. 3 car accidents in less than a year, or about a year, whatever, and it's like, I haven't caught a break in a minute, and I'm just trying to get through this because I am still on medication trials now and trying to figure out my cocktail to make everything work, because I also have anxiety and depression issues from that, and from the car accidents and stuff comes sleeping issues. So that's been another big thing, is stress and sleep deprivation, we figured out, are my big triggers. I work EMS, so that was not helpful, but also it makes sense now looking back as a child why I was so tired all the time. Another thing too that's more recent is I started seeing an actual psychologist instead of a therapist because I moved, and that has kind of shown me a lot of things that could trigger me as well, just based on my reactiveness. So growing up the way I grew up, there was a lot of stressors in that sense, just because I lived in a business, and there was always strangers coming in and out of the house constantly, and my family was chaos. I've been formally diagnosed with critical incident stress, and that is a form of PTSD, but the flashbacks that I get are mostly from traumas as a child. So we're still working on a lot of this, and anything is so complicated, and it's hard. There's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of things changing all the time, and there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air for me. I don't know, I'm a cockroach. That's a lot of my friends have called me that over the years, because they're like, I don't know how this shit just happens to you. Like, I'm the friend that everything happens to, and you're still fine. Like, I don't know. It's just, I've given up on giving a fuck anymore, and I think that's what's kind of helped, but at the same time, I am still human. Like, I can admit right now, I'm fucking sad. This sucks. I don't like this. It's not fun. I don't want anybody else to have to go through this. And sure, I still want answers at the end of the day for a lot of different things, but I'm not going to get them. And what I could get, I got. When I got emancipated, they unsealed a lot of my documents, and I found a lot of things out, and even to this day, I still am looking through medical documentation, and courts have unsealed certain things and stuff that I look through, and it's like, okay, things line up a little bit better as for why things have come to the trajectory that they have and to where we are now. Yeah, that's my story with epilepsy. It's hard, basically. I'm gonna check over my notebook and see if there's anything else that I left out or that I wanted to include. I'm done. All of my facts anyways, but I will also kind of give you guys like an understanding of what epilepsy is in my sense anyways. So where the scarring is in my brain, normally your neurons send little synapses of electricity to each other in a certain pattern to do a certain task in the body, or to move a certain muscle, or to look a certain way, or to whatever it is. And where my scarring is, whenever I get synapses there, they don't go along the correct pathways because it's scarred. They go randomly, basically. So actually the whole reason, I don't know if you guys watched that tattoo tour video, but that I have this lightning bolt on my forearm is because when I was first explained what epilepsy was, he explained it as an electrical thunderstorm. So like a thunderstorm with a lot of lightning. And lightning, basically, was what he was referring the synapses to in my brain as lightning strikes in clouds. And all of a sudden it made sense to me. I was, oh, okay. Yeah, lightning doesn't really know where it's going. It just happens. And then it strikes. And that led me to, obviously, I was given a lot of paperwork and a lot of understanding tools from my doctors and papers and every treatment possible. And all of the ways that they described it to me, none of them made as much sense as just a thunderstorm in your brain. I am so thankful for the doctor that ever told me that too. I think we'll move on to like final thoughts and the future. So my final thoughts, I guess, to conclude all of this is epilepsy sucks. You can get through it, even though it's hard, and it's okay to be upset about it. And I want to say to anybody out there that doesn't know about epilepsy, or maybe doesn't know somebody with epilepsy, for one, you don't know what they're going through. For two, there's so many variations of epilepsy that when somebody tells you that they do have epilepsy, don't fucking take your phone and go like this with the flashlight. I've had multiple people do that to me. Don't do that. You're a fucking child. Don't. Just understand that not every type of seizure is shaking on the floor, frothing at the mouth, grand mal seizure. There's multiple different types. I would just say that if somebody tells you, in any sense, any chronic illness, anything, just kind of be there to understand what they're saying and don't assume shit. Because that's a big part of chronic illnesses, is a mental battlefield going on with yourself, with potentially what has caused your illness, if there's a reason, or other people, anything like that. It's also, these illnesses do take away a lot of opportunity for people. I can't go skydiving. I wanted to, most people say that. I can't go scuba diving. Stuff like that, where it's like, it's not a big deal, like that's not the end of the world. But those little things do kind of suck to hear. It's not comparable. Like, you cannot compare different illnesses to each other, and that's what I feel a lot of people do nowadays, and instantly comparing the severity of it, dependent on what condition you have. I've been bawling, for example, my eyes out one time when I was without my license, and it was right after I lost a lot of my friends, and somebody I kind of on their way out the door of my life anyways had said something to me about like, well, you're not fucking dying if you don't have cancer. And I literally immediately I turned and just my mouth was open and I was like, bitch, I've died twice. And she shut up. But there's a lot of things like that with the mental health part too that I really do like resonate with. We have to support people like this, because if I didn't have my friends through a lot of that, things could have gone a very, very different way. Just please consider others as humans and not a news article. That's my final thought. That's the end of this video. I know it was a long-winded one, and this has been a hard video for me to even film, and it's been several weeks to film because I've been feeling like shit. And I'll admit that I've been a little bit lazy. It's part of feeling poopy, you know? But I also got in a car accident somewhat recently, and I just need to chill. When I say see you next week, bear with me with the schedule, but I do have other stuff in the works, and I can promise you, within the next 2 weeks, there will be something else out that is not sad, it is not personal, but it'll be a fun video for you guys. Thank you again for watching. I think I've said that 5,000 fucking times already. Hope you guys stick around, subscribe and like down below, comment something, comment if you've had a similar experience or if you have any questions. I'm really open to answering questions as well about this stuff specifically, because there's so much that needs to be answered for so many people. You can find me on other social media platforms. I'll link everything down below. I recently started an OF. I'm poor. Support me. Nah, I'm doing that for other reasons too. Follow my shit. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.